Okay, before we pick on pro-lifers, what are the most common fallacies that pro-choice advocates make when they're defending abortion choice?
Well, there's many kinds of fallacies that exist. I think there's probably over 50 of them, and you can look up various lists of them online. So there's two kinds of fallacies that can occur in an argument: a formal fallacy and an informal fallacy. A formal fallacy occurs when there's a problem with the structure in the argument that can be represented with letters. For example, one fallacy that I see frequently in the pro-choice side is the fallacy of the undistributed middle. I'm going to say, well, what's that? It could be represented in a syllogism this way. Remember, syllogism is a fancy word for an argument, like all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Your standard argument.
Right.
Fallacy undistributed middle goes like this. All A's are C's, all B's are C's, therefore all A's are B's. I mean, your listeners might think, well, I don't see what's wrong with that. And pro-choicers will put it this way, all body parts can't survive outside of my body. All fetuses can't survive outside of my body. Therefore, a fetus is a body part.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily work, because I might say that all pro-lifers are mammals and all dolphins are mammals. Therefore, all pro-lifers are actually dolphins.
Obviously doesn't work.
Right. So the phrase I use to describe this to lay people is that just because two things have something in common doesn't mean it's the same thing. If this formal fallacy occurs, the middle, what it means by the undistributed middle, in a categorical syllogism like the all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, there are three terms, and there's a term that is referred to twice. In the case with Socrates, it's man.
Right.
And the thing is, though, in this argument, the undistributed middle, the term isn't fully distributed. So, no, I mean, there are other beings that are neither pro-lifers nor dolphins that are mammals.
Right.
And, just because two things have something in common doesn't mean they're the same thing. Just because a fetus and a body part both can't survive outside of a body doesn't mean they're the same thing, because a fetus is a human organism. And human organisms, we treat them differently than body parts. So that's a formal fallacy.
Okay.
Then there are many, 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 many informal fallacies that occur. An informal fallacy, it's not the structure of the argument. The problem is that there's an ambiguity in human language. And so actually, if you just think of a lot of pro-choice arguments, I could probably spot what's wrong with them and what fallacy might occur.
Okay, so we need abortion because of poverty, and we need to make it so that there are less poor people in the world. It's cruel to force a woman to remain pregnant if she's poor.
Right, that's called argumentum ad misericordiam, the appeal to pity. It's the idea that X is in a pitiful situation, therefore X is right. It doesn't follow at all. An example I've seen used in writing to elaborate this is someone who makes the argument, it's morally wrong to draft young men because my son's going to be drafted, Mr. President, and he's going to get married to this great girl, and he has his whole life ahead of him, and, why do you want to take that away from him? And me as a mother, he's my, I've only got one other son that's just a screwball, and he's my good son. Don't draft my son, Mr. President. The draft is wrong. Well, yes, that's a very sad situation, but it doesn't prove that a draft is wrong. You haven't given a reason. Like maybe it's wrong to use human beings against their will in combat, or you haven't made an argument. You just said, well, feel bad for me. Or, officer, I don't deserve this parking ticket because, look, I needed to get down to the courthouse, and I have to deal with this custody case, and my wife's going to take my kid and have my stuff, and I just don't deserve this ticket today. No, yes, you're in a pitiful situation, but that's not an argument why you don't deserve a parking ticket if you were parked improperly. So just because it's a pitiful situation doesn't mean the situation isn't justified. So yes, keeping abortion illegal may make it more difficult for women and men in economic hardship. But at the same time, to make abortion legal would violate the principle that it's wrong to kill human beings because they're simply in hardship. So that's one fallacy. And then there are lots of others too.